From the first inconsistency in this document, we have only been talking about the creation of the heavens and the earth. However, this is all about to change. When it comes to the earth and the environment, I would think that Christians would be the first people to care about it, just based on the passage that we will read today. But before I give away too much information, let's see what the author of the 700 Inconsistencies document has to say about this. God commands us to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it and have dominion over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. This verse is used to justify Christian opposition to birth control, to concern for the environment, and to animal rights. The earth was made for humans and they can do as they damn well please with it. Genesis 1 verse 28. I honestly have no idea how Christians could oppose a concern for the environment and animal rights. And when we read the passage, you will see what I mean. Also, how is this even supposed to be an inconsistency in the Bible? I thought that's what we're doing in this document. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. You might have noticed that we skipped a few verses from the previous inconsistency to this one. I guess the author just didn't have a problem with the creation of fish and birds, who, by the way, fly in the firmament. Remember how we had a problem with the firmament being in the way for us to fly to space? Well, I wonder how birds fly through the firmament then. Anyways, let's get to the problem at hand. First off, we need to discuss the argument itself. How is this even supposed to be inconsistent? You see, for something to be inconsistent, it has to contradict something that we know to be true. This argument is merely just a statement saying that this verse is used by Christians to oppose these things. Now, let's get to what he actually said in this argument. He said that this passage is used by Christians to oppose three things: birth control, animal rights, and a concern for the environment. That might be true. I'm sure that there are a lot of Christians who have used this passage in the past to justify an opposition to this. But to evaluate whether or not these Christians were right on this specific issue, we need to consider this passage at a deeper level. Since this isn't really an argument, it is very difficult for me to make a counter argument. So what I've decided to do instead is to give you my opinions on all of these things and the reasons for why I believe what I believe. Whether you agree with me on these topics or not, I think that what I'm going to point out are valid thoughts that need to be taken into consideration. Let's talk about the first problem. Is it really wrong to oppose birth control? Well, I would say that you can argue both ways. What does this passage say at face value? Well, we need to be fruitful and multiply. However, I don't think that this passage was ever meant to have any say over birth control. Keep in mind that you could still be fruitful and multiply even if you have used birth control every now and again. But there is a very fine line that we need to consider here. When people who are not married to each other have sex, they are very likely to use birth control in order to prevent having a child together. In that case, the argument should have nothing to do with birth control and everything to do with adultery. And I think it is pretty clear in the Bible that adultery is just plain wrong. However, what I would say to that is that I would prefer that if people who are not married do have sex, that they do use birth control. And the simple reason for this is that if they end up having a child together, that would be really bad for the child. Because it is much better for a child to grow up in a happy family than for a child to grow up as an accident by a broken relationship. So, in conclusion, you can argue that birth control as a concept is wrong, since we need to be fruitful and multiply. However, it could also be argued that birth control is good in cases where sex is had outside of marriage, although that act shouldn't happen in the first place. Alright, now let's quickly talk about the concern for the environment. I think it is pretty obvious that this passage has a clear concern over the environment. I'm gonna make the following assumption. I'm gonna assume that the author is mainly talking about climate change when he talks about a concern for the environment. Because in our day and age, a concern over the environment basically just encapsulates a concern for climate change. I am of the opinion that global warming is not as bad as it is often portrayed in the media and by activists. Now, does that mean I don't have a concern for the environment? Well, obviously no, because I still care about the plastic that gets dumped into the ocean every day. I still care about the fish that are needlessly dying because the oil ship broke. Again, we can talk about this for hours, and this topic probably deserves its own video. But I think Christians who don't care about the environment is not subduing the earth at all. Now lastly, animal rights were mentioned as well. I am of the opinion that we do not need any animal rights, because all people should take care of animals in the first place. However, we do have farmers who stuff chickens into small cages and feed them hormones to make them fatter. There are also reckless poachers out there who kill rhinos for monetary gain. These are things that are really happening, and although they shouldn't be happening in the first place, we now need animal rights to prevent these things from happening. We have dominion over the animals. This does not give us permission to do with them whatever we want. As this article on the Hebrew words for subdue and dominion points out, the verb literally means to rule by going down and walking among the subjects as an equal. So in conclusion, the conclusions drawn by the author does not follow from the passage. So there you have my opinion on all of these things. Now, the fact that this inconsistency wasn't really an argument for anything and was just a sentence literally saying that people have used this verb to justify something I don't want them to justify, therefore it is wrong, we can just reject this argument without any evidence. However, here isn't the argument I would like to make on this topic. Premise 1, we have to be fruitful and multiply. Premise 2, we have dominion over the earth and over all of the animals. Premise 3, there is evil in the world that misuses these responsibilities. Conclusion, this passage has little to say over birth control, concern for the environment, and animal rights. However, we have responsibilities for all three things. The evil in this world needs to be controlled through some way, and it is our responsibility to stop these things from happening. So there you have it, my brothers and sisters. Another inconsistency that is not that inconsistent at all. If you really think about it, we as Christians agree with the author, but of course we can't have that. So they have to find a way to disagree with us, even if that means finding false premises. If you would like to find out how the fact that lions were vegetarian in the Bible is inconsistent, then please watch the video on screen right now. Thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers!